So I just saw Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. For context, I watched the entire Mission Impossible movie franchise for the first time this year. I binged all 6 movies in less than a week, and I fell in love with this franchise and all of these characters. So I was extremely excited for this new one, especially judging by how amazing the early reviews for this film were. So let's get started with my review of this film. So is this movie good? Well, yeah, obviously. Why are you even asking this question? This movie is fantastic and one of the best movies of the year so far. It's just so fun and engaging. This movie was 2 hours and 45 minutes long, but just flew by. Like, I swear, this movie moves by very quickly and you're never bored since there's always a sense of danger and you're on the edge of your seat the entire time. Of course, the big thing to talk about here, as always with the Mission Impossible movies, is the action set pieces, and this movie obviously has some incredible action. This was so refreshing after watching The Flash and Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, since those movies relied a lot on green screen and CGI for their action, but this movie actually uses a lot of practical effects. Like, Tom Cruise really is fighting on top of a train, and he really is driving a car with only one hand. He really did go out of his way to train for a stunt where he drives the motorcycle off a cliff. It's just so nice seeing the behind the scenes featurettes and looking at how they filmed everything. The action sequences are just so exciting and immersive. They really do take advantage of the sets and locations, especially in that car chase scene in Rome where Haley Atwell and Tom Cruise are driving through the city, trying to escape all of these different forces. But the movie adds an extra spin to it, where the two characters are handcuffed to each other, so that makes for a lot of great moments and gags. They always manage to do something new with every action set piece, and it never feels stale. They're also very intense, and the stakes are at an all-time high. Like, there's a big sequence in the middle of the movie, you can see it in the trailers. It's like in a party where our main characters confront the main villain of the movie, and throughout that entire sequence, I'm not gonna spoil anything, but the tension just kept on building and building, and I felt myself on the edge of my seat the entire time, all tensed up, since I felt the danger, and the music and acting and fight choreography was so fantastic. And just, it was such an amazingly well executed sequence, and it was a great experience in a packed theater. I'm not gonna talk about it anymore since I don't want to lead anyone into spoilers, but that's not even the climax of the movie. There's still so many amazing sequences that I haven't even talked about. But seriously, I cannot stress enough how awesome the action is in this movie. It's the best part about the entire film. But the rest of the film is also really great. I feel like the plot here is more memorable than the other Mission Impossible films since it has a clear objective. Right at the beginning of the film, they tell us about this object that the main characters and the villain is trying to get. So that just makes it easier for us to follow the story because we clearly know what the characters are trying to achieve. Of course, Tom Cruise is great in this film, not just with the stunts, but also with the acting in some moments. He really does give it his all. In this movie, we get to learn some more of Ethan's backstory before he joined the IMF, and we get a little bit of world building about how people get recruited into this program and how that all works. Of course, the rest of the team also comes back, and I still love the chemistry between Ethan, Benji, and Luther. Their interactions are still so fun and entertaining. And also, Ilsa comes back, and she has some cool fight scenes. But this movie adds a lot of characters into this franchise. The big one here is Haley Atwell, who has great chemistry with Tom Cruise, and she's just very likable. And I like her kind of small arc going from a thief to being part of this IMF agency. This character really gave us a new look about how people get recruited into this program. She's definitely one of the best female co-leads in this entire franchise, and I'm looking forward to see what they do with her in the future. They also add another character here played by Pom Klementieff. If you don't know, she played Mantis in the MCU, but don't worry, her character here in this movie is very different from Mantis. This character is supposed to be working with the villain of the movie, and I just found her to be a pretty fun character, and she has great energy. I also like how Ethan is in a very vulnerable state since he does have a personal history with the main villain of this film, so we get to see him in a different light. Speaking of the villain, I understand that he is going to bother a lot of people since it goes more into sci-fi elements and AI and all that stuff. but it didn't bother me that much, and I found the villain to be pretty memorable and intimidating. Like, he does some stuff in this film that really lets us know that he's an actual threat and needs to be taken seriously. I don't know, I just found the antagonist in this film to be more memorable than in some of the other entries in this franchise. The music is also incredible and helps make the action scenes more intense and exciting. The main theme was never used too much, like it was never used inappropriately. It was always there to help the moment. The visuals were also fantastic. Like, the stunts were practical, but obviously you do still have to add some effects, and there was never a shot that looked fake. The visuals were solid the entire runtime. Again, a lot of that comes from the fact that they used real practical sets, so they don't have to add a lot of CGI. This film is also very funny. Again, like I said, the main team with Ethan, Benji, and Luther have great chemistry with one another, and I love their banter. The characters in this film are just very charming and likable. There are lots of great gags and jokes where my theater burst out laughing, but it also has its serious and dramatic moments that bring out a lot of emotion. I'm surprised by how well this film balances these tones. Also, despite the fact that this movie is a part 1, it has a complete story and you're satisfied when the credits roll. There is kind of a cliffhanger, but it's not a hard cliffhanger like Across the Spider-Verse or Fast X. Alright, so now I'm gonna get into some of my issues for this film, which I don't have a lot of issues with this film. There's nothing major that took me out of the movie, but I still have some small minor issues. First off, like I said, Ethan had a very personal history with the villain of the film, and that puts him in a very vulnerable place, and they show a small flashback to the events of what happened in the past with the villain and Ethan, but I just wish that they showed more in the flashback and they gave us more context for that event, since it's not entirely clear what really happened. But I'm sure that they're gonna give us a full backstory in Dead Reckoning Part 2. Also, I feel like there's too many scenes where people are just talking to each other and explaining everything, and it gets kinda convoluted. Like, I understood almost everything about the story, but for some aspects I wish that they would have shown us instead of telling us, and maybe they could have explained some concepts more clearly. I have one last issue here, but I have to get into big spoilers to talk about it, so skip to this timestamp if you haven't seen the film yet. I promise you, you don't want to get spoiled for this film. So in the middle of the film, Ilsa dies, which was really unexpected for me since I really did like her character. The whole sequence where she's fighting Gabriel and Tom Cruise is running through the streets, that was fantastic. But if you are going to kill her off, I wish that she could have been more important in this movie's story, and I wish that we could have mourned her death longer. Like, there was a nice scene between Grace and Luther, but I would have wanted to see more of Ethan's perspective after her death, since she was a really important character to him these past couple of movies. Anyways, that was my review of Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, and I thought it was amazing, like a lot of the other Mission Impossible movies. It had fantastic action set pieces and fights, it still has the likable characters and fun moments, the music is still great, but I also found the story to be pretty engaging and more memorable than I was expecting. They added more fun characters into the mix. The villain will bother some people, but I had fun with him. It has some minor issues, but nothing major. This is just an extremely enjoyable movie. I was never bored, it just flew by. It's the top 3 movie of the year so far. It's behind Across the Spider-Verse, and I'm still deciding if I like it more or less than Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Would definitely recommend this movie to everyone. Go watch it, and I'm giving Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 a 9 out of 10.